Hello kiddos, this is a diary. Alright, so today I want to talk to you about a bit of drama that's happening in the video game development world. So one type of developer, and this is a path I've walked myself that exists, is the developer that streams his own work. Okay? And I did this for a couple of years. Very minor success in that particular area, but good enough, I suppose. I don't know. I never exploded or anything like that. I just developed the whole game in that framework and then did some other work later and then kind of stopped. It was A, too much work, B, you always need to be fake on camera and that sort of stuff because you're filming yourself working, right? So you need to lie consistently. And the point that I'm trying to get across here to you is that generally speaking, a lot of people on the internet, I do not know what number, I do not know to what quantity, to what frequency, etc., but it's very, very substantial, much more substantial than anybody would think intuitively, is completely fake. And I mean totally and utterly fake. Now, the drama in question revolves around a fellow by the name, well, the nickname, I suppose, Pirate Software. Now, this individual has been streaming on Twitch for a very long time, and I used to know him. I mean, not personally, but he has raided my channel a number of times. Raided means taken his entire audience into my channel for a brief period of time, and I did the same, vice versa, that sort of thing. But he was a sort of a, figure of authority or an inspiration, if you will. Simply because of his level of success, right? We're talking about a very substantial amount of following, substantial amount of views. Now, I was working, so I was busy, right? It didn't make any sense for me to actually find out whether his success was legitimate or anything in between, or non-legitimate, whatever, doesn't matter, right? So I just went like, yeah, this guy's successful, must be doing well, that's great, but I'm working, right? So. And the one thing that I was noticing as I was doing more and more of this Twitch development was the fact that that my audience repulsed me, which is a bit rough to say, but it kind of remains true. Not everybody, of course. There was a bunch of people with whom I became friends that were in my audience. They were nice people and intelligent people, etc., etc. Just for some reason, one of their hobbies is watching somebody work in this area. But a substantial part of my audience with whom I did not become friends, and they would come and go and that sort of thing, really gave me issues. Every now and then I would get questions like, what do I do to become like you? And my standard answer to them was like, well, stop bloody watching me and go do something with your life. Which, as you might imagine, despite it being a truthful answer and a useful answer for somebody who asks that question earnestly and in good faith, it is not an answer that is in any way helpful to your own user retention, which is how the world works. And that's in part how I came up with the adage that I have, which is the measurement of my success as a developer is the measurement of your failure as a player. That's why I stopped making video games. In what sense, failure? Well, in the sense that you essentially spend all of your time on my product, or in this case watching me develop the product. So that was one of the things that pushed me away from this particular world, and I'm very happy that I've left, effectively speaking, even though the wallet is now substantially lighter. But the sleep is substantially better. So anyhow, what has happened with this Pirate Software, whatever his name is, fellow, is that he recently got exposed for some strange reason, and it's surprising, but basically I want to touch on this myself and essentially demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt that this individual must be completely fake or the drama is absurd. But what we see on screen right now is the demonstration of that. Now, I'm not going to go into excessive technical detail, but at least some of you will know some of this because I've taught you some of this stuff at least some time ago. So what we see here in front of ourselves in the, where's my finger? There. Right there, yes, is code. You should recognize it as code. Now, it's in a different language than what you've seen. You've seen C# before. This one is, I think, a specific script to a specific game engine called GameMaker, but it doesn't particularly matter. Now, in this engine, quite clearly, functions are declared as function, okay? And then they have a name, in this case, dialog voice init, which stands for initialization. And then you have two brackets, which indicates that no information is passed to this function before the function starts. And then what's inside the function is defined within the curly bracket that's on row 2. Okay, now what we see inside there is what is called an array. In this case, a two-dimensional array. What is an array? An array is fundamentally a list of info, of data. In this case, it's called voice list. Now, global, I assume, is a different script, basically a different bit of code somewhere else, okay, called global, that you can reach by typing global dot. And then we access the variable voice list, which is this list of information, okay? Now, within this list, we have an unknown enum dot something. Now, that is a very strange name for a variable, but unknown enum, I presume, is a variable of type enum, which I think stands for enumerator. I'm not 100%, I might be lying now. I've always called it an enum. So what does an enum do? Well, an enum is essentially a fancy way of translating numbers into text. Why? Because you as a human being are able to read text and parse it and understand it. If I were to tell you there is a list of 20 fruits and vegetables, okay, and we call them fruits and vegetables, and then we say fruits and vegetables 0 is a banana, fruits and vegetable 1 is a potato, fruits and vegetable 3 is a, I skipped one, anyway, it would be 2 is tomatoes, and 3 is apricots, whatever, right? I bet you anything that you now need to rewind the video to have any clue what it is that I have said, which fruit and vegetables I've listed. So what you would do in an enum is you would tell it, hello, I'm an enum, and from now on, the number 0 is a banana. And then it goes in a sequence. So you just add words to the enum. Then whenever you access the enum and you use it, you can convert that information back into a number, right? So you, as a programmer, don't need to remember that the tomato was number 2. Because the enum knows that, okay? Now, in this case, he named the enum unknown enum. Apparently, Pirate Software did. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this code here was apparently written by Pirate Software. Anyway, so he named it unknown enum, which is obviously ridiculous because if you did that, you wouldn't have a clue what it's for. Even if you are the only developer on it, it would be painful to parse. And then inside it says value 0. And then value 1. So that catastrophically defeats the purpose of an enum. So instead of calling it, unknown enum.banana, unknown enum.tomato, or whatever, he put value 0, value what? That doesn't mean anything at all. Now that is the first dimension of the list. What does that mean? That you can imagine that the list has two categories, right? The first category is, let's call it the type, and then the second category is the permutation of said type. For example, the type could be shape, and then the permutation of the shape could be shape 0 is a square, shape 1 is a triangle, whatever, that sort of thing. And what we see here now is this incredibly weird list of stuff that doesn't seem to make any sense and is in a totally arbitrary order, and it's absolutely illegible by any human being in any situation. And on top of it, it has an insane amount of repetition. So this code is so catastrophically terrible that it is impossible to argue that it's code in and of itself. Like, this is monkey repetition. It is very, very strange. Global voice list unknown enum value 1 square bracket 1 sound voice lore. I'm assuming that's what that is. I don't know what sound voice lore is. I don't know what data type it is because I do not know what voice list's data type is. It might be a script string, might be something. I have no clue. But down there's an integer. You can see at row 22. It's a -4. Huh? This is so impossibly terrible that it looks like it's a joke. or somebody's trolling somebody. But we're going to proceed with the theoretical assumption that none of what we see is fake. So, if this is the code this man has written, this man has been lying to his audience about being a programmer for the past, I don't know, decade, and nobody noticed it until now. So the lesson that you need to pick up, and this is very, very obvious to notice, okay? Like any engineer, such as myself, a person way less skilled than me, would notice immediately that this would be impossible. Like, I can't even imagine putting this together, the quantity of copy pasting you would need to be doing, and then making sure that you don't make mistakes. It looks like the arrays are 1 based, meaning they don't start from 0, they start from 1. So for some reason, value 0 contains only one element in the category. So the category value 0 contains only one element, and that element is sound voice observer. And then the second category, value 1, which again is abstract, I have no idea what the heck that means, right, goes down. But you as a human being could incredibly easily type in the wrong number. And on top of it, suppose that I need to add one new line of dialogue within this system. I mean, that will cause a huge problem to the situation. I'm not going to go into details as to why, how, etc., etc., etc. The point is, as a code review person, this individual here, I think his name is Code Jesus, whatever, is doing code reviews, right? As somebody who reviews this code, this is so catastrophically incompetent. It is essentially impossible. Like, I genuinely do not think even somebody who is beginning to code for longer than half an hour would go down the route of doing something in this way. Like, anybody with any degree of IQ would say, this is a bit too much work to make any sense. Manually typing thing. So, this individual, effectively speaking, has been defrauding his audience, no matter how large, right, for a decade or however long. And that's what happens on the internet. When you watch those TikTok videos with people pretending to be in a happy marriage, then they randomly divorce and nobody expected it. That's because they don't show you what's real. You understand? So, don't be fooled until you know a person in person. Pardon the repetition. Everything you know about them is entirely possibly false. So, there's the lesson for the day.